Welcome, gamers and viewers, to the Weekend Game Show, where I attempt to educate my viewers on game design, different aspects of game design, so as to answer the question, why do video games take so long to make? Because, smart-ass answer, I want people to stop fucking asking. But the more eh, I guess heartfelt technically works. But the more heartfelt, more understanding, I'm just going to say it, more empathetic answer is with patience comes understanding. If you have a better understanding of how games are designed, games are developed, if at any point in time you hear a game gets delayed, instead of going, what the fuck, it's going to be, what the fuck happened. So, today what I'm going to be doing is a read aloud stream, or let's read some shit. If you don't like language, it's a read aloud stream. We're all adults here, I hope. Let's not all get too sensitive over word choice. So for the read aloud streams, the purpose for these is to show you additional resources. You're getting into game design, you want to know about game design, don't know where to start. I got some books here to hopefully help you out. So today, instead of doing art books like I did last week, command read alouds to see what's going on with that. Today I'm going to be doing one about video games themselves. First book being Jane McGonigal, Reality is Broken, Why Games Make Us Better and How They Can Change the World. The next book after that is on writing and world building. Volume 1 by Timothy Hickson. Because if anybody wants to do the writing for a video game, world building is a great way to start doing it. Or having an understanding of world building. So, nope, actually I need to explain something else. I'm not going to be reading the entire book for copyright and DMCA reasons. I'm only going to be reading portions of books. Portions of books. Only a portion. There's the command. I did the command. Again, command read aloud. But before we get into the reading, we need to get into the art. And today's artist shout out goes to Christian Dimitrov. Here is concept art, environmental concept art by Christian Dimitrov. Instagram and Twitter is their same exact handle. And this is a post from their art station. There's the link to it. And they have a website. And Command AOTD and Command Artist will take you to the artist's info. Now, Command AOTD, Artist of the Day, will take you to the original, will give you a link to the original Instagram post. Command Artist will take you to the entire list of artist shoutouts I have done. And Christian makes number 184. Now, when I say artist shoutouts I have done, not all of them made it to Twitch because I was doing artist shoutouts before I even started doing Twitch. So there's that. But after I started on Twitch, doing Twitch and then doing an artist shoutout every day, kind of burning me out a little bit. So I started doing artist shoutouts Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. There we go. Make my life simpler, less hectic. Although, if you go to Coffee, Command Coffee, One, they have started doing, sorry, I was using lip gloss. Ran out of chapstick. Although I do like this lip gloss better than my chapstick. Anyway, so if you go to Coffee, they have started doing membership tiers. Thank you so much. Each tier, there are 4, but each tier makes it so you can actually recommend artists for me to shout out. Yay! So it would be outside of the norm. So I would actually be doing artist shout outs throughout the month instead of me doing it. So there's actually, or there should be, I should say, an artist shout outs section. I forgot where I put it. Because I know I created it. I will look back at it later. Because that's bad. So there's actually an artist shout out section. It's supposed to have the format for submitting an artist shout out. Because the main reason why I was getting burnt out to begin with was because I was doing all the research. Because, look, so we have the artists, we have their social media there. So I was literally, that was really the burnout. Because I could have just shared the art and been done with it. But I want everybody to know where they can be found. Because, again, this is an artist shout out. I want people to know where they can be found. The point of this is for them to have a platform where they can be seen. This is what I'm doing. So just sharing the art and going, here you go. No, I actually look them up. I look up their social media, so you have it. That was what was really tiring for me. All rights go to the artist, by the way. Probably should have started with that. 1-800, my bad. So, but again, the coffee tiers grant you a certain number of artists to shout out every month. So if you do tier 1, which is Tartarus, you get to recommend one artist shout out a month. The next one is Asphodel, tier 2. You can shout out 2 and you get the point. I'm not going to completely get into that. But again, artist shout out today, Christian Dimitrov. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. They have an Instagram and Twitter, same handle. They have an art station. Here's the link there to their post. They have a website. Don't forget to give them a follow. And now we get to do the read aloud. Now, today's stream is going to be a shorter one. I love my lovely honey, but lovely honey likes to tell me things last minute. Yay. So he told me yesterday we are going to be going to the family dinner 2.5 hours earlier than normal. So I, instead of sitting here in my sweatpants and my jeans, or instead of sitting here in sweatpants, I'm in jeans. So I'm going to be ready to, get out the door. Although, if anyone's concerned about me being in the jeans, you don't really need to be worried about me being in the jeans, because at one point, my partner was going to donate a bunch of his jeans, and I said, you know what, honey, how about you just give them to me, and then I will wash them, and then they will shrink, and then I'll have pockets. Alrighty then. So, I got the book. So the way the read alouds go, again, reading portion of the book for copyright and DMCA purposes. So what I'm going to be doing, I'll be reading the summary on the back of the book, if applicable. And then I'll be reading I should really have this up, introduction and the foreword if they have one. If not, I will be reading a portion of the first chapter. So, Jane McGonigal's book, Reality is Broken: Why Games Make Us Better and How They Can Change the World, has a summary and an introduction. And they do not have a foreword, so I'll be reading, unless the introduction is really long, I don't remember. So I'll be reading a portion of the first chapter. Oh, the introduction is 19 pages long, so I might just be able to read that. We can do that. All right, so back of the book. With and starting on the summary on the back, which they really need to, side tangent, they really need to stop putting a whole bunch of testimonials on the back of the book. That is not why we go to the back of the book. We go to the back of the book for the summary. At the very least, you can put it on the inside of the book. But no, I don't care what other people have to say. What's the book about? Damn. Anyway, back to the summary. With 174 million gamers in the United States alone, we live in a world where every generation will be a gamer generation. But why, Jane McGonigal asks, should games be used for escapist entertainment alone? In this groundbreaking book, she shows how we can leverage the power of games to fix what is wrong with the real world. From social problems like depression and obesity to global issues like poverty and climate change, and introduces us to cutting-edge games that are already changing the business, education, and nonprofit worlds. Written for gamers and non-gamers alike, Reality is Broken reveals how we can harness the power of games to boost global happiness. Isn't that a good summary? Why don't people do that shit anymore? Because they're all about the likes and the ratings instead of, actual heartfelt good content. Anyway, introduction. Reality is broken. Anyone who sees a hurricane coming should warn others. I see a hurricane coming. Over the next generation or two, ever larger numbers of people, hundreds of millions, will become immersed in virtual worlds and online games. While we are playing things we used to do on the outside, in reality, won't be happening anymore, or won't be happening in the same way. You can't pull millions of person hours out of a society without creating an atmospheric level event. If it happens in a generation, I think the 21st century will see a social cataclysm larger than that caused by cars, radios, and TV combined. The exodus of these people from the real world, from our normal daily life, will create a change in social climate that makes global warming look like a tempest in a teacup. Edward Castronova, Exodus to the Virtual World. Ew. That was the quote in the beginning of the introduction, by the way. Now for the introduction. Gamers have had enough of reality. They are abandoning it in droves. A few hours here, an entire weekend there, sometimes every spare minute of every day for stretches at a time, in favor of simulated environments and online games. Maybe you are one of those gamers. If not, then you definitely know some of them. Who are they? They are the 9-to-5ers who come home and apply all of the smarts and talents that are underutilized at work to plan and coordinate complex raids and quests and massive multiplayer online games like Final Fantasy 11, XI, and the Lineage worlds. They're the music lovers who have invested hundreds of dollars on plastic rock band and Guitar Hero instruments and spent night after night rehearsing in order to become virtuosos of video game performance. They're the World of Warcraft fans who are so intent on mastering the challenges of their favorite game that collectively they've written 250,000 wiki articles about the fictional universe, creating a wiki resource nearly 1/10 the size of the entire Wikipedia. They're the brain age and Mario Kart players who take handheld game consoles everywhere they go, sneaking in short puzzles, races, and mini games as often as possible, as a result, nearly eliminating mental downtime from their lives. They're the United States troops stationed overseas who dedicate so many hours a week to burnishing their Halo 3 in game service record that earning virtual combat medals is widely known as the most popular activity for off duty soldiers. They're the young adults in China who have spent so much play money or QQ coins on magical swords or other powerful game objects that the People's Bank of China intervened to prevent the devaluation of the yuan, China's real world currency. Most of all, they're the kids and teenagers worldwide who would rather spend hours in front of just about any computer game or video game they do anything else. Than do anything else, excuse me. These gamers aren't rejecting reality entirely. They have jobs, goals, schoolwork, families, commitments, and real lives that they care about. But as they devote more and more of their free time to game worlds, the real world isn't. I hated hyphenated words like that. The real world increasingly feels like it's missing something. Gamers want to know where in the real world is that gamer sense of being fully alive, focused, and engaged in every moment. Where is the gamer feeling of power, heroic purpose, and community? Where are the bursts of exhilarating and creative game accomplishment? Where is the heart expanding thrill of success and team victory? While gamers may experience these pleasures occasionally in their real lives, they experience them almost constantly when they're playing their favorite games. The real world just doesn't offer up as easily the carefully designed pleasures, the thrilling challenges, and the powerful social bonding afforded by virtual environments. Reality doesn't motivate us as effectively. Reality isn't engineered to maximize our potential. Reality wasn't designed from the bottom up to make us happy. And also, there is a growing perception in the gaming community. Reality compared to games is broken. In fact, it is more than a perception. It's a phenomenon. Economist Edward Castronova calls it a mass exodus to game spaces, and you can see it already happening in the numbers. Hundreds of millions of people worldwide are opting out of reality for larger and larger chunks of time. In the United States alone, there are 183 million active gamers, individuals who, in surveys, report that they play computer and video games regularly, on average 13 hours a week. Globally, the online gamer community, including console, PC, and mobile phone games, counts more than 4 million gamers in the Middle East, 10 million in Russia, 105 million in India, 10 million in Vietnam, 10 million in Mexico, 13 million in Central and South America, 15 million in Australia, 17 million in South Korea, 100 million in Europe, and 200 million in China. Although a typical gamer plays for just an hour or two a day, there are now more than 6 million people in China who spend at least 22 hours a week gaming, the equivalent of a part-time job. More than 10 million hardcore gamers in the United Kingdom, France, and Germany spend at least 20 hours a week playing. At the leading edge of this growth curve, more than 5 million extreme gamers in the United States play on average 45 hours a week. With all of this play, we have turned digital games for our computers, for our mobile phones, for our home entertainment systems into what is expected to be a $68 billion industry annually by the year 2012. Wow, how old is this book? I think it's almost. I'm not going to speculate, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a $100 billion industry by this point. And we are creating a massive virtual silo of cognitive effort, emotional energy, and collective attention lavished on game worlds instead of on the real world. The ever skyrocketing amounts of time and money spent on games are being observed with alarm by some, concerned parents, teachers, and politicians, and eagerness by others, the many technology industries that expect to profit greatly from the game boom. Meanwhile, they are met with bewilderment and disdain by more than a few non gamers, who still make up nearly half of the US population, although their numbers are rapidly decreasing. Many of them deem gaming Many of them deem gaming a clear waste of time. Shut the fuck up. As we make these value judgments, hold moral debates over the addictive quality of games, and simultaneously rush to achieve massive industry expansion, a vital point is being missed. The fact that so many people of all ages, all over the world, are choosing to spend so much time in game worlds is a sign of something important, a truth that we urgently need to recognize. Brain, slow down a bit, please. Thank you. The truth is, in today's society, computer and video games are fulfilling genuine human needs that the real world is currently unable to satisfy. Games are providing rewards that reality is not. They are teaching and inspiring and engaging us in ways that reality is not. They are bringing us together in ways that reality is not. And unless something dramatic happens to reverse the resulting exodus, we're fast on our way to becoming a society in which a substantial portion of our population devotes its greatest efforts to playing games, creating its best memories in game environments, and experiences its biggest success in game worlds. Maybe this sounds hard to believe. To a non gamer, this forecast might seem surreal or like science fiction. Are huge swaths of civilization really disappearing into game worlds? Are we really rushing headlong into a future where the majority of us using games to satisfy many of our important needs? Boo boo. I feel like I read that sentence wrong. I read part of it wrong. Are we really rushing headlong into a future where the majority of us use games to satisfy many of our most important needs? Thank you, Captions Overlay. If so, it will not be the first time that such a mass exodus from reality to games has occurred. Indeed, the very first written history of human gameplay, Herodotus's Histories, the ancient Greek account of the Persian Wars, dating back more than 3,000 years, describes a nearly identical scenario. While the oldest known game in the ancient counting What is going on with my eyes? While the oldest known game is the ancient counting game Mancala, evidence shows it was played during Egypt's Age of Empires, or the 15th to the 11th centuries BC. It was not until Herodotus that anyone thought to record the origins or cultural functions of these games. And from this ancient text, we can learn a great deal about what's happening today, and what's certainly coming next. It's a bit counterintuitive to think about the future in terms of the past, but as a research director at the Institute for the Future, a nonprofit think tank in Palo Alto, California, and the world's oldest future forecasting organization, I've learned an important trick. To develop foresight, you need to practice hindsight. Technologies, cultures, and climates may change, but our basic human needs and desires to survive, to care for our families, to lead a happy, purposeful lives remain the same. So, at IFTF, we like to say, to understand the future, you have to look back at least twice as far as you're looking ahead. Fortunately, when it comes to games, we can look even farther back than that. Games have been a fundamental part of human civilization for thousands of years. In the opening book, The Histories, Herodotus writes, When Attis was king of When Attis was king of Lydia in Asia Minor some 3,000 years ago, a great scarcity threatened his realm. For a while people accepted their lot without complaining, in the hope that times of plenty would return. But when things failed to get better, the Lydians devised a strange remedy for their problem. The plan adopted against the famine was to engage in games one day. The plan adopted against the famine was to engage in games one day so entirely as not to feel like craving for food, and the next day to eat and abstain from games. In this way they passed 18 years, and along the way they invented the dice, knucklebones, the ball, and all the games which are common. What do ancient dice made from sheep's knuckles have to do with the future of computer video games? More than you might expect. Herodotus invented history as we know it, and he has described the goal of history as uncovering moral problems and moral truths in the concrete data of experience. Whether Herodotus' story of an 18-year famine survived through gameplay is true, or, as some modern historians believe, apocryphal, its moral truths reveal something important about the essence of games. We often think of immersive gameplay as escapist, a kind of passive retreat from reality, but through the lens of Herodotus' history, we can see how games could be a purposeful escape, a thoughtful and active escape, and most importantly, an extremely helpful escape. For the Lydians, playing together as a nearly full-time activity would have been a behavior highly adaptive to difficult conditions. Games made life bearable. Games gave a starving population a feeling of power in a powerless situation, a sense of structure in a chaotic environment. Games gave them a better way to live when their circumstances were otherwise completely unsupportive and uninhabitable. Make no mistake, we are no different from the ancient Lydians. Today, many of us are suffering from a vast and primal hunger, but it is not a hunger for food. It is a hunger for more and better engagement from the world around us. Like the ancient Lydians, many gamers have already figured out how to use the immersive power of play to distract themselves from a hunger for more satisfying work, for a stronger sense of community, for more engaging and meaningful life. Collectively, the planet is now spending more than 3 billion hours a week gaming. Damn. We are starving, and our games are feeding us. Yeah, this book is old. And so, in 2011, we find ourselves at a major tipping point. We can stay on the same course. We can keep feeding our appetites with games. And we can watch the game industry continue to create bigger, better, and more immersive, virtual worlds that provide increasingly compelling alternatives to reality. If we stay this course, we will almost certainly see the exodus from reality continue. Indeed, we are already well on our way to a world in which many of us, like the Lydians, spend half our time gaming. Given all the problems in the world, would it really be so bad to pass the coming decades as the Lydians did? Or we could try to reverse course. We could try to block gamers' exit from reality. perhaps by culturally shaming them into spending more time in reality, or by trying to keep video games out of the hands of kids, or, as some U.S. politicians have already proposed, by heavily taxing them so that gaming becomes an unaffordable lifestyle. Maybe I need to do some breathing exercises before I do this. To be honest, none of those options sound like a future I'd want to live in. Why would we want to waste the power of games on escapist entertainment? Why would we want to waste the power of games by trying to squelch the phenomenon altogether? Perhaps we should consider a third idea. Instead of teetering on the tipping point between games and reality, what if we threw ourselves off the scale and tried something else entirely? What if we decided to use everything we know about game design to fix what's wrong with reality? What if we started to live our real lives like gamers, lead our real businesses and communities like game designers, and think about solving real-world problems like computer and video game theorists? Imagine a near future in which most of the real world works like a game. But is it even possible to create this future? Would it be a reality we would be happy to live in? Would it make the world a better place? When I consider the potential future, it's not just a hypothetical idea. I've already posed it as a real challenge to the community. Did I skip a page? No, then why does that sentence feel wrong? I've already posed it as a very real challenge to the one community who can truly help launch this transformation: the people who make games for a living. I'm one of them. I've been designing games professionally for the past decade. And I've come to believe that people who know how to make games need to start focusing on the task of making real life better for as many people as possible. I haven't always been so sure of this mission. It has taken a good 10 years of research and a series of increasingly ambitious game projects to get to this point. Back in 2001, I started my career by working on the fringes of the game design industry, at tiny startup companies and experimental design labs. More often than not, I was working for free, designing puzzles and missions for low-budget computer and mobile phone games. I was happy when they were played by a few hundred people, or, when I was really lucky, a few thousand. I studied those players as closely as possible. I watched them while they played, and I interviewed them afterward. I was just starting to learn what gives games their power. During those early years, I was also a starving graduate student, earning a PhD in performance studies from the University of California at Berkeley. I was the first in my department to study computer and video games, and I had to make it up as I went along, bringing together different findings from psychology, cognitive science, sociology, economics, political science, and performance theory in order to try to figure out exactly what makes a good game work. I was particularly interested in how games could change the way we think and act in everyday life, a question that, back then, few, if any, researchers were looking at. Eventually, as a result of my research, I published several academic papers and eventually a 100-page dissertation, proposing how we could leverage the power of games to reinvent everything from government, healthcare, and education to traditional media, marketing, and entrepreneurship, even world peace. And increasingly, I found myself called on to help large companies and organizations adopt game design as an innovation strategy. From the World Bank, the American Heart Association, the National Academy of Science, and the U.S. Department of Defense, to McDonald's, Intel, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the International Olympic Committee. You read about many of the games I created with these organizations in this book. And for the first time, I'll be sharing my design motivations and strategies. The inspiration for this book came in the spring of 2008 when I was invited to deliver the annual Rant, at the Game Developer Conference, the most important industry gathering of the year. The rant is supposed to be a wake-up call, a demand to shake up the industry. It's one of the yeah, it's always one of the most popular sessions at the conference. That year, the room was packed to standing room capacity with more than 1,000 of the world's leading game designers and developers. And in my rant, they heard the same argument you're reading here, that reality is broken, and we need to start making games to fix it. When I was finished, the applause and cheers took what seemed like forever to die down. I had been nervous that my rant would be rejected by my peers. Instead, it seemed to strike a chord with the industry. I started to get emails every single day from people who had heard about the rant or read the transcript online and wanted to help. Some were just starting out in the industry and had no idea how to go about doing it. Others were industry leaders who genuinely wanted to change the direction for games for good. Change the direction of games for good. Seemingly overnight, startup companies were founded, capital was raised, and today there are hundreds of games in development that aspire to change reality for the better. I wouldn't dream of taking credit for this turn of events, of course. I was just lucky enough to be one of the first people to see it happening and one of the strongest voices cheering it on. In 2009, I was invited back to the Game Developers Conference to give a keynote address about what game developers needed to do over the next decade to reinvent reality as we know it. This time, I wasn't surprised to discover that some of the most popular sessions at the conference were about games for personal and social change, positive impact games, social reality games, serious games, and leveraging the play of the planet. Everywhere I turned, I saw evidence that this movement to harness the power of games for good had already started to happen. Suddenly, my personal mission to see a game developer win a Nobel Prize in the next 25 years didn't seem so far-fetched. When I look at the remarkable world-changing work game developers are starting to do, I see an opportunity to reinvent the ancient history of games for the 21st century. Some 2,500 years ago, Herodotus looked back and saw the early games played by the Greeks as an explicit attempt to alleviate suffering. Today, I look forward and I see a future in which games once again are explicitly designed to improve quality of life, to prevent suffering, to create real, widespread happiness. When Herodotus looked back, he saw games that were large-scale systems designed to organize masses of people and make an entire civilization more resilient. I look forward to a future in which massively multiplayer games are once again designed in order to reorganize society in better ways and to get seemingly miraculous things done. Herodotus saw games as a surprising, inventive, and effective way to intervene in social crisis. I too see games as potential solutions to our most pressing shared problems. He saw that games could tap into our strongest survival instincts. I see games that once again will confer evolutionary advantage on those who play them. Herodotus tells us that in the past, games were created as a virtual solution to unbearable hunger. And yes, I see a future in which games continue to satisfy our hunger to be challenged and rewarded, to be creative and successful, to be social and part of something larger than ourselves. But I also see a future in which the games we play stoke our appetite for engagement, pushing and enabling us to make stronger connections and bigger contributions to the world around us. The modern history of computer and video games is a story of game designers ascending to very powerful positions in society, effectively enthralling in the hearts and minds, and directing the energies and attention of increasingly large masses of people. Game designers today are extremely adept wielders of the power, no doubt more adept than any game designers in all of human society. I figured out why I'm having issues. It's the font. Anyway, they have been honing their craft and refining their tactics for 30 years now. And so it is that more and more people are being drawn to the power of computer and video games and finding themselves engaged by them for longer and longer periods of time, for greater and greater stretches of their lives. Amazingly, some people have no intent in understanding why this is happening or figuring out what we could do with it. They will never pick up a book about games because they're already certain they know exactly what games are good for, wasting time, tuning out, and losing out on real life. The people who continue to write off games will be a major disadvantage in the coming years. Will be at a major disadvantage in the coming years. Those who deem them unworthy of their time and attention won't know how to leverage the power of games in their communities, in their businesses, in their own lives. They will be less prepared to shape the future, and therefore they will miss out some, damn it, and therefore they will miss some of the most promising opportunities we have to solve problems, create new experiences, and fix what's wrong with reality. Fortunately, the gap between gamers and non gamers is growing smaller all the time. In the United States, the biggest gaming market in the world, the majority of us are already gamers. Some recent relevant statistics from the Entertainment Software Association's annual study of game players, the largest and most widely respected market research report of its kind. 69% of all heads of household play computer and video games. 97% of youth play computer and video games. 40% of all gamers are women. 1 out of 4 gamers is over the age of 50. Shit. The average game player is 35 years old and has been playing for 12 years. Most gamers expect to continue playing games for the rest of their lives. Meanwhile, the scientific journal Cyberpsychology, Behavior, and Social Networking reported in 2009 that 61% of surveyed CEOs, CFOs, and senior executives say they take daily game breaks at work. These numbers demonstrate how quickly a gaming culture can take hold. In trends from every continent, from Austria, Brazil, and the United Arab Emirates to Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, and South Africa, show that gamer markets are emerging rapidly with similarly diverse demographics. Over the next decade, these new markets will increasingly resemble, if not completely catch up to, those in leading gamer countries like South Korea, the United States, Japan, and the United Kingdom today. As games journalist Rob Fay or is that Rob Fahey, famously pronounced in 2008, it's inevitable. Soon we will all be gamers. We have to start taking this growing gamer majority seriously. We are living in a world full of games and gamers, and so we need to decide now what kinds of games we should make together and how we will play them together. We need a plan for determining how games will impact our real societies and our real lives. We need a framework for making these decisions and for shaping these plans. This book, I hope, could serve as that framework. It's written for gamers and for everyone who will one day be a gamer. In other words, for virtually every person on this planet. It's an opportunity to understand now how games work, why humans are so drawn to them, and what they can do for us in our real lives. Water break. If you are a gamer, it's time to get over any regret you might feel about spending so much time playing games. You have not been wasting your time. You have been building up a wealth of virtual experience that, as the first half of this book will show you, can teach you about your true self, what your core strengths are, what really motivates you, and what makes you happiest. As you'll see, you have also developed world changing ways of thinking, organizing, and acting. And as this book reveals, there are already plenty of opportunities for you to start using them for real world good. If you don't have a lot of personal experience with games yet, then this book will help you jumpstart your engagement with the most important medium of the 21st century. By the time you're finished reading, you'll be deeply familiar with the most important games you can play today and be able to imagine the kinds of important games we will make and play in the years to come. If you're not already a gamer, it's entirely possible that you will still might not become the kind of person who spends hours in front of a video game. But by reading this book, you will better understand the people who do. And if you would never play computer video games, let alone make one, you can benefit enormously from learning exactly how good games work and how they can be used to fix real world problems. I regret not reading this book first. As in, when I say first, I mean last week. This should have been the first book I read. Portions of. Game developers know better than anyone else how to inspire extreme effort and reward hard work. They know how to facilitate cooperation and collaboration at previously unimaginable scales, and they are continuously innovating new ways to motivate players to stick with harder challenges for longer and in much bigger groups. These crucial 21st century skills can help all of us find new ways to make a deep and lasting impact on the world around us. Game design isn't just a technical craft. It's a 21st century way of thinking and leading, and gameplay isn't just a pastime. It's the 21st century way of working together to accomplish real change. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry once wrote, "As for the future, your task is not to see it, but to enable it." Games in the 21st century will be a primary platform for enabling the future. So let me describe the particular future that I want to create. Instead of providing gamers with better and more immersive alternatives to reality, I want all of us to be responsible for providing the world at large with a better and more immersive reality. I want gaming to be something that everybody does because they understand that games can be a real solution to problems and a real source of happiness. I want games to be something everybody learns how to design and develop because they understand that games are a real platform for change and getting things done. And I want families, schools, companies, industries, cities, countries, and the whole world to come together to play them. Because we're finally making games that tackle real dilemmas and improve real lives. If we take everything game developers have learned about optimizing human experience and organizing collaborative communities and apply it to real life, I foresee games that make us wake up in the morning and feel thrilled to start our day. I foresee games that reduce our stress at work and dramatically increase our career satisfaction. I foresee games that fix our educational systems. I foresee games that treat depression, obesity, anxiety, and attention deficit disorder. Thank you. And I foresee games that help the elderly feel engaged and socially connected. I foresee games that raise rates of democratic participation. I foresee games that tackle global scale problems like climate change and poverty. In short, I foresee games that augment our most essential human capabilities to be happy, resilient, creative, and empower us to change the world in meaningful ways. Indeed, as you'll see in the pages ahead, such games are already coming into existence. The future I've described here seems both desirable and plausible to me. But in order to create this future, several things need to happen. We will have to overcome the lingering cultural bias against games, so that nearly half the world is not cut off from the power of games. We need to build a hybrid industries and unconventional partnerships, so that game researchers and game designers and game developers can work with engineers and architects and policymakers and executives of all kinds to harness the power of games. Finally, but perhaps most importantly, we all need to develop our core game competencies, so we can take an active role in changing our lives and enabling the future. This book is designed to do just that. It will build up your ability to enjoy life more, to solve tougher problems, and to lead others in world-changing efforts. In part 1, Why Games Make Us Happy, you'll go inside the minds of top game designers and game researchers. You'll find out exactly which emotions the most successful games are carefully engineered to provoke, and how these feelings can spill over in positive and surprising ways into our real world lives and relationships. In part 2, Reinventing Reality, you'll discover the world of alternate reality games. It's the rapidly growing view of new software, services, and experiences meant to make us as happy and successful in our real lives as we are when we're playing our favorite video games. If you've never heard of ARGs before, ARGSs before, okay. You may be shocked to discover how many people are already making and playing them. Hundreds of startup companies and independent designers have devoted themselves to applying leading-edge game design and technologies to improving our everyday lives. And millions of gamers have already discovered the benefits of ARGSs firsthand. In this section, you'll find out how ARGSs are already starting to raise our quality of life at home and at school, in our neighborhoods, and our workplaces. Finally, in part 3, how very big games can change the world, you'll get a glimpse of the future. You'll discover 10 games designed to help ordinary people achieve the world's most urgent goals: curing cancer, stopping climate change, spreading peace, ending poverty. You'll find out how new participation platforms and collaboration environments are making it possible for anyone to help invent a better future, just by playing a game. Ultimately, the people who understand the power and potential of games to both make us happy and change reality will be the people who invent our future. By the time you finish reading this book, you will be an expert on how good games work. With that knowledge, you'll make better choices about which games to play and when. More importantly, you'll be ready to start inventing your own new games. You'll be prepared to create powerful, alternate realities for yourself and for your family, for your school, your business, your neighborhood, or any other community you care about, for your favorite cause, for an entire industry, or for an entirely new movement. We can play any games we want. We can create any future we imagine. Let the games begin. And I will end Reality is Broken there. I should have read this last Saturday. I really should have. I am kicking myself hard. I need to stop thinking negatively. So the family dinner was moved to. It is almost 1. There is no summary on the back. Moving on to the next book, On Writing and World Building, Volume 1. So, ending the short, I'll read and then I'll figure out how long Shu reads. So there's a preface. I'll read the preface, see how long that takes me, and we'll go from there. I need a bookmark. I should have had this already. I'll take the bookmark I was using for Reality is Broken. Alright, preface for On Writing and World Building. Something you need. Ooh, this is a good companion book for Reality is Broken. Excellent. Hopefully, I picked the right book to follow up. We'll see. Because memory, I don't know. Preface for On Writing and World Building. Command. Shit. What did I do? Command. I'm going to do command read aloud again. And do keep in mind the links in the read aloud link command are affiliate links. Preface. I do not like the word should, or at least I do not like how it has been used in books, videos, and lectures that purport to teach people how to write. The term should is used often enough that authors might be tricked into thinking there is an objective way to write well, that there is some pantheon of writing deities who have brought forth the 10 Commandments of writing. I love that. And that only the wise and sage-like amongst us can discern their will. Dare you write a book that is pure and unadulterated wish fulfillment? If you write a book that fails to use the 3-act structure, curse ye! Doom awaits those who write vampire romances with one-dimensional characters. When was this book written? I feel like that's a jab at Twilight. I really want to know now. Anyway, moving on. Limited time. While I would not call this a philosophy of writing, at risk of joining the ranks of pretentious Barthesian literary theorists of history, my personal position is that an author owes no obligation in their work other than to write the story they wish to read. There are writing techniques we can use to make for a satisfying story, one that might be published, but that isn't always the end goal for an author. Authors can write stories for any number of reasons: mental health, personal fulfillment, to express one's love of another story. As in fan fiction, I do that. Or I was doing that. And then I don't know why I stopped. And then I went back and then I found those old fan fictions and I have no recollection of where I was going with it. Back on track. Sorry. ADHD does that. I will work on it. I will start over the sentence. Authors can write stories for any number of reasons: mental health, personal fulfillment, to express one's love of another story, as in fanfiction, or writing for another person, like Rick Riordan, who originally wrote Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief for his son Haley? Holly? I don't know. I feel bad. Who has ADHD and dyslexia. Oh! Now I want to go back and reread it. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. The main character, if you don't know, has dyslexia. This is why I prefer to think of the On Writing series not as instructions on how you should write, but as discussions about why certain stories are satisfying to the average reader and why others are not. I use the word should a total of 96 times in this book, only 17 of which contain an imperative. Across a 71,000 word book, that's one instruction every 4,200 words on writing. I choose to use the term lightly. It carries with it a connotation that these other motivations for writing are not valuable which simply is not true. Writing is as much for me about processing issues I have dealt with in real life as it is about my desire to write a story that others find captivating. This is why my characters often deal with issues that I have also dealt with. Going through whatever. Oh, that makes sense. The saying, write what you know. Going through whatever that might be in detail, delving into psychology, and seeing how my characters deal with it helps me break the issue down into manageable pieces. In a sense, it helps me feel less alone in that struggle. The genesis of this book is really in the genesis of the On Writing series online. This was back in late 2017, a different time, a different era, the age of the video essay. Ugh. In particular, video essays about writing had become more prominent. There had always been a few YouTubers who discussed narrative and structure and writing techniques, and the whole of AuthorTube, people like Shaylin Wrights, had been talking about books for nigh on a decade. Between 2016 and 2018 or so, there was an explosion of YouTubers talking about these same topics, and their videos would get millions of views. It was exciting to someone who sits down with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and takes excessive notes on why its first chapter works so damn well. Hint, J.K. Rowling introduces one major concept in virtually every major character in the story with well-hidden expository writing. Nerd paradise. But I noticed a trend over time. The vast majority of these content was akin to the five tips for articles you would find scattered about the mores and mires of the internet. 5 tips for writing your favorite. Yeah, 5 tips for writing your first chapter. Firstly, introduce your main character. Secondly, open the book with an exciting hook. These are fine tips to give, but they aren't actually helpful. Okay, a writer has to introduce their main character, but how do we go about doing this in a compelling way? Hooks are useful tools, but how do you construct a good one? Virtually every book, good and bad, has a hook. Which questions should act as your hook, given how you build tension throughout the rest of the story? A lot of writers know these basic tips already, often instinctually, even if they do not know the academic terminology. This means that without that extra layer of depth to the discussion, it isn't all about helping to the average writer. Nah, it isn't all that helpful to the average writer. Beyond this, these videos were usually written in the context of a particular television show or film that had recently come out, meaning the discussion was often more about the story than how the techniques work. There is nothing wrong with this type of content, I want to be clear. It is a fantastic new dimension through which we can analyze stories we love, and while the video essay format is limited, it is valuable, and it has a lot of steam left in it. Okay, I'll concede, he's right. It simply was not what I needed. I wanted to have in-depth discussions about narrative, story structure, character design, and world building that drew on a multitude of sources to give an adequate breadth, 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 thank you, to the conversation. These discussions needed to be measured and not confined to a 5-minute video. If you have been following the On Writing series for long, you will know that I have recently gotten a bit carried away with the not confined to a 5-minute video thing. All of this ultimately motivated me to create the On Writing series, and thus this book, a compilation of all my work for it plus a few extras. Not videos and topics too broad to be helpful, but educational and detailed breakdowns of every niche and specific elements of storytelling with clear, coherent, and in-depth discussions about how we might write a satisfying story. To my shock, it worked. And with the video discussing hard magic systems, in all honesty, a little known concept in writing circles that has since garnered 1.4 million views. I am immensely grateful to all who have supported me in this series. When it took off, I had this moment where everything clicked for me for my online life. This was what I wanted to do. Education has always been a passion of mine, and the On Writing series allowed me to pursue it in perhaps the best environment I could. A special thank This is definitely written in a modern age. A special thank you to my patrons on Patreon who financially support literally whose financial support literally means the difference between me paying rent or not. I am not making fun of him using Patreon. I went from reading a book talking about 2011 to a book with Patreon in it. That is funny to me. Wow. They also encouraged me to put this book together, helped me pick the artist for the cover. Yeah, good choice. Pick the artist for the cover and the art itself. They also helped me pick thumbnails for the videos, which is a lot more stressful than you might imagine. Also, Courtney, who for some also Courtney, who for some unknown reason read the chapters of my terrible fantasy book I had been writing and rewriting for a decade. I have since gone scorched earth on that book, by the way, and though it may seem like all your time was wasted, your continual investment in me kept me going through to doing YouTube. I could never forget Ellie, who has been a vital cog in the workings of my career. You have read almost every script and provided invaluable feedback with your understanding of narrative, so thank you. Another huge thank you to my girlfriend, Laura, and my parents, Anne and Steve, who did the whole loving and encouraging me to pursue my dreams thing. Okay, that sentence makes more sense. Let me reread it because I got confused. Another huge thank you to all. Damn it! Another huge thank you to my girlfriend Laura and my parents Anna and Steve, who did the whole loving and encouraging me to pursue my dreams thing. Turns out that it is a pretty vital part of the development of a kid. Excuse me if you heard that. What I hope is that this book, a codified version of the On Writing and World Building series, will serve as a valuable educational resource that offers clear points that you may not have always considered when putting together your story. Stay nerdy. Tim. And how long? Prologues. Alright, so Prologues is 1 page-ish long. Hooks is 2 pages as long. I'll read those and then I'll cut it. And then I'll cut it there. So, part 1, Prologues. Paper Towns by John Green, A Game of Thrones by G.R.R. Martin, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, Aragon, good book. I actually read that one by Christopher Paolini. Shit. Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, A Dance with Dragons by G.R.R. Martin, Altered Carbon by Leita Colagris. Let me try that again. Laeta Kalogridis, based on Richard K. Morgan's book of the same name, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Avatar: The Last Airbender by Michael DeMartino and Brian Conizio. How you start your novel is one of the most important decisions you will ever make as a writer, and part of this is considering whether you should use a prologue. As always, the best way to begin your novel will vary depending on your style, genre, legitimate personal creative choices, but there are some ways of doing prologues that work better than others in terms of engaging a reader. A prologue is a segment that takes place before the first chapter, and the defining feature of a prologue is its distance from the main narrative. This might be in A, the point of view. It is told from the perspective of a different character to the main story, like in The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. B, time. It takes place significantly after or before the main narrative. Ooh. Like the first part in A Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which takes place 10 years prior. I use the term part because the opening segment is called Chapter 1, but it truly operates more as prologue. C, geography. It takes place in a vastly different setting of the main. It takes place in a vastly different setting to the majority of the narrative, like in the 2018 Netflix series Altered Carbon. In this section on prologues, we will be discussing hooks, necessity, backstory, exposition, the importance of tone, mood, and theme in a prologue, and length. Hooks. Having a prologue, as well as a first chapter, usually means you have 2 hooks at the beginning of your book. This allows for you, as the author, to introduce 2 big questions to the reader. The challenge with this double hook structure is that the prologue hook can undermine the tension arising from the hook in the first chapter. This is because some authors use a prologue to explain a mysterious element to the story. Imagine, for example, if Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince used a prologue hook explicitly depicting Snape making the unbreakable vow to kill Dumbledore if Draco cannot do it. Then, in the first chapter, the hook was that Harry suspected Draco was up to something. There are 2 problems with this. Firstly, the reader would already know that Draco is up to what Draco is up to, meaning the book in the first chapter adds no attention to the story. Secondly, it makes the prologue pointless. If the reader was going to be left wondering what Draco and Snape are up to by the first chapter, then the prologue just slows down the reader getting to that point. When using this double hook structure, it's important to have each hook target 2 different questions in the narrative. Rowling understood this in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. The prologue leaves the reader wondering, what has Snape promised to do if Draco can't? While the first chapter has nothing to do with this. Instead, it starts off with Dumbledore offering to take Harry on a secret mission, leaving the reader wondering, what is Dumbledore planning? The 2 hooks eventually become somewhat connected, but this is not until far later in the book. Ensure your prologue targets a different question to that of the first chapter. It is also important to consider the type of hook as well. The advantage of a prologue is that it lets you write from a different character's point of view, at a different time, or in a different place. This means prologues are often used to depict pivotal scenes crucial to the development of the tension in the story that the characters in the main narrative could not possibly be aware of. For example, in A Game of Thrones by G.R. Martin, the prologue is written from the perspective of a Night's Watchman, and it depicts the mysterious others far north of the Wall raising windlings from the dead, playing Tetris with their bodies and then killing the Watchman's comrades. Oh, playing Tetris with their bodies. Huh. Wow. This tells the reader there are fantastical elements coming and introduces a threat that one of the main characters, Jon Snow, will eventually face but cannot possibly be aware of, as the supernatural threat does not appear until chapter 52, 500 pages into the story. At the beginning, the novel holds strictly to a core of medieval realism, and Jon is neither at the Wall, nor does he know what's going on there. It would be incredibly difficult to introduce the supernatural threat in the main narrative without dropping awkward exposition along the lines of, so, did you hear about how there's, like, ice zombies? The prologue hook should be something that cannot be effectively communicated early in the main narrative, because the main characters cannot know about it, but is still crucial to the development of the tension in the narrative. And it is 1:16 for me. The family dinner is at 2. I am going to be on the safe side and and cut it here. So, to everyone who hopped in, thank you very much. Popped in, popped out, listened for a bit. I see I have 2 viewers because Streamlabs doesn't leave my settings alone. I want the viewer count hidden. Thank you. All right, so here we get to the ending plug. Me, there are all my social medias there. Hoorah. My Become Empowered, Be Empowering, I was trying to get them to match, but Be Empowering was taken on Instagram and Become Empowered was taken on Twitter. Good to know there are people out there who think similarly to me. And then my art links are there. I haven't been fiddling with it as much as I should have, but yeah. And then if you are interested in getting to my socials or getting to my coffee to support me, again, completely up to you, completely optional. I'm not making a demand, but they're there if you appreciate what I do. And I mentioned before, if you did the command read aloud, the affiliate link, the links there were affiliate links. I'm affiliate of bookshop.org, what I like to call the Etsy for small business bookstores. Anytime you go to bookshop.org or you go through me, you are supporting a small business instead of a giant corporation. I also have, I mentioned it before, coffee.com/artist shoutouts. I basically use it to, I kind of use it, I guess we could say kind of like an art gallery. Every artist shoutout I do has gone there. And I had something else to say and I forgot. I'm used to that by now. Here is again in a bigger view. Bookshop.org has raised $15,723,932.06 for local bookstores. I am more than happy to be giving them a platform so more people know about them. And there is one of my favorite quotes, Oscar Wilde. You can never be overdressed or overeducated. Knowledge is power. I endeavor to spread it, which is why I'm an affiliate of bookshop.org. And this brings me to the end. Again, thank you so much for being here. The 2 main mottos for the channel are, with the first one being, a game is a problem-solving shit. How did I forget this already? A game is a problem-solving activity approached with a playful attitude. I should probably just put it on here somewhere. Oh wait, I did at the start. And then we have the other one. I am a gamer, not because I don't have a life, but because I choose to have many, which is a perfect bounce off of Reality is Broken, why games make us better, and how they can change the world. And it's also something you could be said of readers. You could say of readers. So, thank you all for watching. May every decision you make in the future